Now, before we get into today's video, let me quickly talk to you about our latest raffle that we've launched, the first ever raffle of the Car UK channel, where you can win this stunning 1993 Rover Mini Cooper 1.3 injection. Showing just 59,000 miles, the car has service history, MOT, and is ready to go. In fact, we've been making some improvements to it over the last few weeks to make it even smarter. This iconic car can be yours by simply entering the Car UK raffle for as little as just £2 per ticket. There's also an alternative prize as well, which is this 1991 K10 NISSAN MICRA, a car that changed the way small cars were looked at in the 1980s with its superb reliability. This example's done 78,000 miles, a really nice practical classic, and also comes with £1,000 cash as well, which I'll put in the glove box for you as an additional prize as well. So your options are the stunning Rover Mini Cooper or the practical K10 Nissan MICRA with £1,000 cash. And if you don't want either of the two cars, don't worry, because there's also a cash alternative prize of £3,000 to be won as well. There's also sub prizes, including diagnostic machines and jump packs to be won. So there's loads of good reasons to be getting involved from as little as £2. Now, we're going to be using a company called Raffle to host the draw for us. It's independently ran and gives you guaranteed prizes as well. And this is a guaranteed prize draw. If you enter and win, you will win prizes. There is no minimum ticket sales or anything like that. These prizes will be won. We're also going to be helping out charity on the back of this as well. Money from this draw will be going to charity, which you guys of the Car UK channel viewers will be deciding which charities will benefit. Now, to get hold of your tickets, you can click on the link description. That will take you over to the raffle page, and you can buy your tickets from as little as £2. But if you want to spend a bit more, there's bundle offers to take advantage of. The bundle offers mean that you can get extra free tickets. So, for instance, if you buy 5 tickets, you'll get an additional 10 tickets free. But buy 20 tickets, and you'll get an additional 100 free tickets. And remember, the free tickets are worth just as much in value as a paid ticket and gives you more chances of winning those prizes. So to get involved in the first ever Car UK raffle, simply click on the link description button below. It'll take you over to the raffle website, purchase your tickets from as little as £2 and get involved today. Hi there, welcome back to the Car UK channel. Now today I'm going to quickly talk to you about my best sellers, my top 10 best sellers here at my pitch, to give you an indication of what sort of vehicles that we get asked for here, in particular in the market that we deal in, which is under £5,000. So this is the more budget end, the cheaper end of the market. So hopefully this will give you some insight into why people buy these vehicles and why in particular as a dealer we like selling them, because there are good reasons as why we deal in certain vehicles and we don't bother with others, particularly at this price point where vehicles are going to be a lot older and can be more troublesome. So anyway, let's start off with our best seller. By far, the car that we sell the most here with ease is the Toyota Aygo, which is also a Citroen C1 and the Peugeot 107. This ran from 2005 all the way up to 2014. The ones we deal in are usually around sort of 2009 to 2014 up to the Mark 1 series, which they facelifted as well in 2012. Same car, but they just changed the front ends on both 3 models. All 3 models are identical, C1 107 and the Aygo. Do not be fooled by the Citroen Peugeot badges. They are not French cars remotely. These cars are Japanese, basically engineered, and were designed and built in the Czech Republic, or whatever Czech Republic is called these days. Fitted with a Toyota Daihatsu made engine, 1 litre or 998cc 3-cylinder. They are super reliable. We never see them breaking down or anything like that when it comes to the engine. They're actually very well made and put together, and they offer really good, interesting motoring. And they are extremely cheap to run. In fact, really, if you can't afford to run an Aygo C1 or 107, you're going to be getting public transport, let's be honest, because there isn't anything really cheaper out there to run. They are effectively free road tax or £20 a year road tax at worst. Cheap insurance, they did offer Group 1, but most of them are Group 2 or 3, so extremely cheap to insure. And also as well, they're not that horrible to drive. In fact, they're really decent things to drive. In fact, we have one here at work we use every day and do hundreds, if not thousands of miles of it every month, going all over the UK to auction houses and just picking stuff up with it. I mean, I come in it myself pretty much, 4 or 5 days a week to work in it. And I get in it knowing that it'll never ever give me any ounce of trouble, as long as you just do the basic maintenance to it. They also can come in some quite decent colours as well. It says they're not for everybody. Usually we struggle to sell them to young lads. They're not that keen on them, but young girls quite like them. And as a second car for all ages, they are by far one of our best sellers. And if we get them in stock, literally they last on sale probably for 24, 48 hours max, unless they're red or yellow. They do seem to be struggle with red and yellow ones, but any other colour, they're just gone pretty much instantly. So the next car on my list that we do really well with is the Vauxhall Corsa. As you can imagine, the Vauxhall Corsa is extremely popular. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say to you that the Vauxhall Corsa is a super reliable car, far from it. But as long as you know your way around them and you start off buying a half decent one in the first place, you can make them into a good retailable car that someone can get a good fair few years out of. Now, as far as reliability goes, the Corsa is not the number one option. And in fact, I tell people that when they come here. They say to me they want a Corsa, I say that's brilliant. I can sell you a Corsa, it will be right, I'm going to do all this for you, I'm going to make sure it's perfect, but I guarantee you at this sort of age point, bear in mind we're dealing in Vauxhall Corsas from sort of 2011 to 2014, 15 at a push to keep under £5,000. They're going to be fine going out. Obviously, we do all the major things that go wrong with them. But in 2 years' time, I guarantee you will be spending money on them. But they are a nicer looking car. They're quite nice to drive. And as a style goes, for what it's worth, young drivers like them. And at the end of the day, who are we to stop them from buying cars that they want? And as long as they go out right, they will give good service. 1.2 and 1.4 petrols are probably going to be the most common. They do a 1 litre in the early versions, 3-cylinder. I'm not a great fan of that engine. I will buy them, but they are a bit temperamental. The 1.2 is probably the best choice to go with. Not the cheapest thing to tax, the 1.2, unfortunately, but they doesn't seem to stop them going out the door. We do really well with anything that's sporty looking, so the limited edition Corsas, they are really, really strong sellers. 5-door Corsas, believe it or not, are really popular. You'd think going back years ago when I started this job, 3-door cars like back then, the Saxo 106, the Corsa Bs, 3-door was what everyone wanted. If I had a 5-door one of those, you could not sell them to a younger driver. Now it's like the opposite way round. They want 5-door vehicles, mainly because they're slightly cheaper to insure, and also they want convenience and want to get their mates in them. That seems to be the reason why they want 5 doors. But we sell them straight away. They're easy things to get rid of. You do a lot of timing chains on them, so that's the main thing you have to worry about when buying one. Start it up, ideally from cold, make sure it hasn't got any chain rattle. Or if it has, is it going to be done? Because that is one of the major problems with them. But once that's sorted, there's only really other things like, say things like you can get thermostat housings that can leak. They're quite common. We always just change every one of them just to be done with them. The odd temperature switch or a radiator switch can play up and can cause the fan not to come in, and that can cause coolant issues. Again, we just change them. It's not worth the hassle for the sake of a £5 switch that can fail. But other than those sort of issues, they will give good motoring, I see, and they are really, really easy to sell as a dealer. Now, our third car on the list is something that we sell pretty easily, again, is the Ford Fiesta. Now, particularly, we're looking at the 1.25 petrol Fiesta, or Z-Tech we call it. All 1.4, we do 1.4s, but they're quite rare. But effectively, they're based on the same 1.25 unit. Very reliable, been going around for 20 odd years plus. Super reliable engine, and it's far superior than its later engine you'll see, which is called the 1 litre EcoBoost. We do not sell 1 litre EcoBoost Fiestas. Look on Marketplace, you will see a 1 litre EcoBoost Fiesta, a far less money, newer car than equivalent 1.25 Z-Tech petrol version. And there's a good reason for that, because the 1 litres are absolute shite and should be avoided like the plague, which is why the 1.25 is more popular and why it will do more money for a car that's got more mileage and is older. It makes no difference, it will still do more money than an equivalent EcoBoost model. Now, park the engines to one side for one moment. The actual car itself drives very well. They're actually a nice looking car, usually in quite decent colours as well. They do quite nice blue versions of them. They're quite popular in black and silver as well. They're really decent to drive. He says, and actually, if you get the right engines, they're quite reliable. Main things that can go wrong on them, to be honest, not too much, to be honest. The steering, you've got to check the steering on them. Steering racks, they can go a bit clunky, but easy to replace. Sometimes you get a bit of knocking on the back end. That's down to axle bushes, but again, they're quite cheap to replace. And unlike some of the earlier Fiestas, the shape from sort of 2008 onwards is not really known for being much of a rock box. Value-wise, well, you don't get a lot of car for your money. £3,000 on a retail pitch here will probably get you something like maybe 11 or a 12 plate Fiesta with 90,000 miles, maybe just a tad more. They do hold the money really well. So like I said, buy the 1.25 Fiesta. That is our definitely one of our top sellers. All the 1.4, we don't get many of those. But avoid that 1 litre EcoBoost. And if you do go down the route of buying a 1 litre EcoBoost, either make sure that it's either had a replacement engine either put in it, and you'll be amazed how many have had replacement engines put in there, or it's had the wet belt done. I am not saying that I would never ever sell a 1 litre EcoBoost. I bought many of them, but mostly I've just traded them on. But if I had one that had a belt done recently, I might take a punt on it. But generally, I would never go looking for one in an auction, and if I don't need to buy them, I just won't touch them. Buy the 1.25 or 1.4, they are by far the superior engines. Now, our fourth bestseller is another Ford, and it is the Ford Focus Mk3 model. Ford Focus Mk3 started from 2012 plate. I'll show you a picture of one here. Really nice car, dead nice to drive, and a real cut above the previous Mark 2.5. Engine-wise, well, you'll keep away again from that 1 litre EcoBoost, unless it's, like I said, he's got an engine in it recently or the belt's been done, but even so, I still wouldn't want to buy one. They do a 1.6 petrol alternative, an engine that was carried on from the previous model. That is the one you should be buying. Yes, it's not probably going to be as economical as the 1 litre EcoBoost, but I would sacrifice a few miles to the gallon to have reliability. And the 1.6 petrol is where it's at. 1.6 diesel potentially, but if you have no reason to have a diesel, you're going to be doing a lot of short trips, don't buy one because they will clog up. But if you are going to do the odd long journey, then a diesel might be more appropriate. And the 1.6 is not a bad little engine. The only thing I'd say to you is buy manuals. I wouldn't be buying a automatic one because they're going to have all what's called power shift gearboxes, which we don't buy for a good reason because they just seem to break a lot and are extremely expensive to fix. But if you're looking to buy a 1.6 Mark III Focus, I'd say I can't recommend those enough. They are brilliant cars, drive really nice, and actually still quite modern looking. Hold the money quite well, unfortunately. They are quite strong money still. But if you're going to go out there with 3 or 4 grand, you should get yourself a nice between 12 to 14 plate. It also depends on what spec it is. Titaniums and stuff like that are obviously going to be more money. Now, a fifth car on your list might surprise you. It's actually the Dacia Sandero. The Dacia Sanderos offer fantastic value for money, and we are picking up as dealers here quite regularly, and they offer really decent, cheap motoring. They say you get a lot of car for what your money. They weren't particularly expensive new. Go back to sort of 2014, 15 when these were sort of in their pomp. They were like starting from 6,795 for some of the Sanderos. Go forward 10 years, you can still spend 3 or 4 grand on a 15, 16 plate Dacia. It's mental how little they've depreciated. But they are very smart cars. They've got very tried and tested mechanicals on it using Renault mechanics, which I know some people say, well, French cars are rubbish. You can think that all you like, but there are some French engine and tech that's actually very good. And the old Clio technology, in fact, the Renault Clio is a very good car as a whole, but the old engine they use, the 1.2 petrol, for instance, is brilliant. They also do a 1.5 diesel. You meet someone who's had a 1.5 diesel engine in one of the Renaults or the Dacias or the Nissans or even Mercedes A-Class, I doubt you'll find someone who's had a bad experience with one. As long as they've been maintained, they are really reliable and offer decent motoring. Again, it's a diesel, so if you're going to go buy a diesel Dacia Sandero, which they do make, then just be wary of the fact if you're going to do a lot of town driving, don't buy one, just get the 1.2. But they are good news. We sell loads of them. The best option is probably the Stepway. So they do a standard Sandero, and then they do a Stepway, which has got like the plastic bumpers on, a bit higher up, got the roof bars on. So I'll show you pictures of the two here. The Stepway is probably the most popular vehicle, particularly if it's not in white. White's probably the least favourite colour. Some people aren't really bothered, but white was a base model colour. But if you get one in a nice blue colour or something like that, they fly out the door. But even the standard Sandero sells really well, and they are really good news. They also do a Dacia Logan, which is the same car with just an estate version. That again comes in 1.5 diesel, used a lot by taxi drivers. They're really popular. Good news, say cheap estate car. Some of them were 30 quid road tax as well, some of the diesel versions. Just all round good sellers. Next one on the list, another Dacia, and it is the Dacia Duster. We've sold a couple of these recently, and they lasted literally just like an hour on sale. They're just gone. Personally, for the Duster, which is quite a big car, I would go for a 1.6 petrol or a 1.5 diesel. The 1.6 petrol will be a Renault Megane engine, which is pretty old school and robust. The diesel is the same one we just mentioned a few moments ago. They're very reliable. The Dusters, look, they can look a bit ugly to some people. I actually think they look quite nice. They're a cheap car. They do what they need to do. They've got high ground clearance to say, and you actually, when you talk to people who own them, you don't seem to hear many bad comments about them. People seem to like them. And the fact that they fly out the door here when we get them in says everything you need to know about them. They are really good sellers. Number 7 on our list, a popular car, which unfortunately I just do not get enough of them, is the Seat Ibiza. Now, the Seat Ibiza we're talking about here is the shape from sort of 2008 plate all the way sort of up to 2014 sort of model. We stock ones around 59, sort of 12, 13 plate. As soon as I get a Seat Ibiza in, they fly out. Engine-wise, you're looking at 1.2 or 1.4. A lot of the early ones are actually 1.4, which is an older engine carried over from the Golf and the Polo. It's a pretty decent engine. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's pretty okay. It's robust, cam belt driven, a little bit old-fashioned and a bit tappety, but it does its job, and it doesn't seem to stop people buying them. People want them, and they don't give too many issues, to be honest with you. They're okay. They do a 1.2 version, which would be like a TFSI unit, and say they chain driven. Have to watch out for chains on them. Some of them are chain driven, like I said, and they can cause issues. Usually when starting up, you'll hear a nasty chain rattle, anything like that. They need to be basically sorted, put to bed quickly, because if you leave them, they will, well, basically knacker the engine up very quickly. But as long as you've got a decent one that's got a decent chain on it and it's not rattling, the TFSIs are quite good options. Manuals are good. The autos will be a DSG version. You have to be wary of those. I'm not saying buy a DSG. They do have issues and faults. They can go wrong. They can cost you 500-600 quid if they go wrong to be fixed. They can cost you thousands to be fixed. But there's certainly worse gearbox out there. And when you get a nice DSG running well, they are nice to drive. But most of the ones we sell here are going to be manuals. I think they're a better car than the Volkswagen Polo, which is what it's based on. They just look nicer. They're a nicer looking vehicle overall. You see, and we have no issue selling whatsoever, and they're extremely popular, particularly with younger drivers. Number 8 on our list. Now, this is going to be an unpopular one, but it's nonetheless a good seller for us. It's a Fiat 500. Now, Fiat 500s are one of those cars which we stock out of necessity, not necessarily because we want to stock them. Now, I'm not saying that they are completely unreliable. If we just talk on the engine for one moment, they use the 1.2 Fiat fire engine that's been around since the dawn of time. And actually only went out of production, that engine, a few years ago. That little 1.2 they use in the Fiat is very, very good. It's reliable. It doesn't give them any issues or anything like that. So from the engine perspective, they're very, very good. And that's probably the most common engine you'll come across, the 1.2. They do a 900cc, I think it is, twin air model, which sounds like an old motorbike, which I don't know much about. And personally, I just don't bother stocking them because I don't know much about them. And most people just want the 1.2 anyway. I think they did make a 1.4 version, which will be the same fire engine, or it might be a 16 valve version of it. Again, they're extremely rare. And they do a 1.3 diesel. Don't bother with the 1.3 diesel. Most times it's going to be using a town car. It will just clog up, and they're not reliable, in my view, the 1.3 diesels anyway. So I would just buy the 1.2 petrol, and it's actually quite economical, and it's got just enough grunt you need for it, and say you've got that reliability. Now, the main issue with Fiat is not so much the engine, it's more everything else around it. They're not rock boxes or anything like that. They can get a bit scabby on bottom of the sills, but they are easily repairable. It's more just sort of like things like door handles fall off. The rear axles can actually rot as well. Now, I don't mean the actual body rots, the axle separates, but the rear axles are prone for rotting on what we call the cup holders, where the spring sits in the back. Actually really cheap to buy. We can buy new rear axles for their 500s for about 120 quid now, brand new. And they will outlive the car. So it's not the end of the world from our perspective as a dealer. If we get one with a rotten rear axle, we can put a brand new one on there, and it's a good selling point. But you have to be wary of this when buying one privately, because they can be problematic. Silly other things as well, like you get dash faults on the clocks that can be a pain in the arse to fix. The Bluetooth can pack up on them and they have to be fixed, and that's a nightmare because they're in the boot and they're buried and you have to send them away to be fixed. It's just those little things on them that go wrong. Clutches can be a pain. Not that they're prone for bursting clutches or wearing out. It's more the case of they just seem to suffer with noisy clutches, and the only way to fix them is by changing pretty much all the slave cylinder on them, and they're dead expensive and fiddly to do. And at one point we couldn't seem to get stock of them either, although that has changed a lot in the last few months. Gearboxes can be prone on them as well. We've had to put a few gearboxes in them. In fact, I have 2 outside now needing gearboxes, so that says everything you need to know. But that aside, these bits are actually quite cheap to do, and if we get one put together right, or we ideally just buy a slightly newer one like 14, 15 plate, we usually don't have any issues with those ones, they sell incredibly well. Like I said, it's needs must with them. We do make money out of them. We've had the odd one that's been a nightmare. I can think of a yellow one that haunts me quite well. But generally, overall, we do okay with them. If you can steer yourself away from buying one, I would. But they are very nice looking cars. I think every single one we have sold here has been female who's bought it. And at the end of the day, they are popular, and that is the reason why we have to sell them. Now, the next one on my list, I'm going to try and broaden this out a little bit rather than just focus on one particular model. But it's generally just sort of Hyundai and Kia product. Mainly stuff like the iX20 we do well with. We also do well with Hyundai i10s. They are really good news. i10s, I'll quickly mention those. Early ones, 1.1 petrols. They ran up to about 2010-11 plate. Then there's the 1.2 petrol version, which was arguably a better engine, so a bit smoother to drive, a little bit better on fuel. The early ones were cam belt driven, the later ones were timing chain driven. 1.4 engine is loosely based off the 1.2 as well. Those engines that are fitted into the i10s and the 1.4 is fitted into the iX20s and i20s. They can suffer with timing chain issues. That's the 1.2 and the 1.4. But other than that, they're generally really decent vehicles. Alternators on the i10s can be a little bit tricky. On the i20s and iX20s, it's usually things like window regs can suffer problems with. I've had a few issues with traction controls and ABS sensors and stuff, but these things are really straightforward to fix. Overall, they offer really reliable motoring, they're quite nice to drive, and they do sell extremely well. And again, one of our best sellers without doubt. i20, i10s and iX20s. i30s can also be popular, particularly 1.4 petrol versions, and also the diesels as well, the late diesels, the 1.6 diesels, they're quite popular. In fact, we've got a couple of them coming in now, and so we've already got names down for them. So even the older diesels are still quite well regarded. And finally, the last vehicle on our list staying in South Korea is the Kia Sportage and iX35. We sell these like hotcakes. As soon as we get them in, they are flying out the door. Now, of the two, the iX35 and the Sportage, personally, and I'd like to know your thoughts in the comment, I think the Sportage looks better of the two. You can see both here. They started on the same year, so they're around about 2011 they came into the marketplace, and saying they're both made on the same platform. But the Sportage to me just looked a bit nicer. We don't seem to struggle to sell either of them. I think if you have one side by side, similar money, the Sportage would go first. But the iX35 will be sold to someone else probably a few days later. Now, in fairness, actually, this iX35 seems to be a little bit better spec to standard. You seem to find more in the used market that are better spec at half decent money. With the Sportage, it's the Model 3 that seems to be the sort of creme de la creme that people want. That's one that's got glass roof, nav in. But they say it doesn't matter which one you get. They are brilliant cars. 1.7 diesels are the ones that we do really well with. They do petrols as well, 1.6 petrols. But most of them are diesel. It was in that era when diesels were being sort of promoted heavily. They say there was a massive take-up of diesel cars, so a lot of them are just 1.7 diesels. They do a 2-litre diesel. The 2-litre diesels are predominantly four-wheel drive, I'm led to believe. Well, the ones I've come across have all been four-wheel drive. We don't sell them here. Not that there's anything wrong with them, we just have a particular customer who buys them all offers. So we just basically focus on the front-wheel drive versions, which are all 1.7. The 1.7 diesel engine is actually very, very good. Very economical. Certain years, particularly late on, some of them actually went into the cheap tax bracket, but it's only for a very short period. Most of them incur this sort of a higher band. They're not particularly dear to tax. I think they're about £180, £200 a year for the older models. But you said you can get some cheap tax versions. They're a nice looking car, nice driving position. Just an all-round decent vehicle. Things to look out for on them. They can suffer with silly things like the gearboxes in particular. They're quite common for crunchy gears, so go and drive one. Go for your gears 1 to 6, obviously. Forward gears, particularly between second and third. If you get any crunching, you've got a knackered synchro. They can be repaired, but it's going to cost you quite a bit to do. But other than that, they're generally all right. They can suffer with some real sharp clutches. You have to be careful with those where they get a horrible bite point at the bottom, usually when they've not been fitted right. And also as well, handbrakes can be an issue. I've seen a few of them where the rear brakes, because they've got like an inbound shoe with an outer caliper on and disc, they can suffer where basically the shoes internally get sort of jammed up and the backing plates that hold all the shoes in brakes falls apart and you have to change the back brakes, which are a bit of a pain to do. But other than that, really, I'm being quite picky. They're actually really good cars. You compare to something else like a Vauxhall Mk3, which we do sell, by the way, the iX35 and the Sportages will sell far more of those than we would compared to something like a Mk3 or even a Cougar. So anyhow, there is a list of the popular vehicles that we sell here at the Car Pitch. Now, I'll do another list probably next week talking about the vehicles that we do not buy, the ones that we will not have on the pitch, pretty much under any circumstances. So make sure you catch that one next week. Now, if you've got any opinions on the vehicles mentioned in this list, I'd like to hear your comments on the popular vehicles that we sell here and also anything else that you feel needs mentioning too. Thanks again for watching this one. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to the channel and I'll see you all in the next one.